I will welcome everyone to this presentation on the power of story listening for thriving leaders. And let me see, I'm going to move my slide here. You know, the whole purpose of learning how to listen for stories deliberately is to be able to build connection and inspiration whenever you want, right? Also to build hope, trust, and empowerment, and especially during times like today when we're still dealing with COVID and business disruptions. How do you be like a really amazing leader through these times? And story listening is one of the most powerful ways you can do that, right? So here it's a little bit about me. You can see, you know, the book I've written. I'm a TEDx speaker, some of my clients, but more importantly, there's my website. So if you have any questions, want to contact me, please do so from my website. So first of all, you know, download the story listening instructions. This is a one-page instruction sheet for you on how to really story listen, and the process that we use to be really great listeners. There are specific behaviors and attitudes that we want to adopt when we're story listening. And this is your instruction sheet, right, that you can keep with you at all times. Now, storytelling. You know, there are two sides of the coin to storytelling. There's the telling part, and then there's the listening part. And so much focus is on the telling part, we almost forget and ignore this whole story listening piece. So let's dig into story listening and learn more about that. All right, there we are. When we listen, right, first thing we have to ask ourselves is, what do we want to have happen? Like in most listening, what's going on is it's all about me, right, the listener, and what I want. Right? When actually story listening, one of the fundamental shifts we want to have happen is that the focus is just deeply listening to the teller, right? The person who is sharing something with you. And so this shift is made up of a couple different pieces that we're going to go through. Our default mode in listening, whenever we listen to somebody, we're usually focused on things that we want to say, maybe a piece of advice that we want to give, right? A suggestion we want to offer. Maybe we're just thinking about the story that we want to share in return. But you know what? All that really is, it's just an inner monologue with ourselves. We're talking in our heads and we're not really listening to what's going on. And the experience becomes all about your agenda, not the other person's. This is why, right? This is a fundamental shift when we story listen, right? Because what we do is we set our agenda aside and we are just there totally for the person who's sharing something with us. So the art of listening, right, requires a few things of us. First of all, I want to say that all communication starts with listening. And in fact, when we're in the land of storytelling and business storytelling, listening is the first skill to master to be able to be a great teller. All great performance storytellers that I've connected with and who I've taken classes from, they all agree story listening. Listening is the first skill to build, but listening as a leadership skill is often ignored, much to our peril, by the way. Because when you story listen, you dramatically improve your decision making. I can't tell you how many times, at least for the last 10 years, in every workshop that I do, we go through an experience of someone sharing about a project in the typical way, right? A status update. And then the second person does something different, and they share the story of their project. And hands down, everyone in the audience says, oh, I get so much more great information from the story. And then I ask them, well, which one would improve your decision making? And they always say, oh, if I heard the story, I would be able to make a much better decision. So what's not to like about that? Because story listening, here's another byproduct. It's a very powerful byproduct of story listening. It's where people feel seen, heard, and valued. And by the way, every single person on the planet wants to be seen, heard, and valued because it doesn't happen often enough. This is why I say story listening is such a high leverage point for leaders, no matter what kind of a leader you are or where you are in the organization. Story listening is key to being a better leader, better decision making. There are basically 5 kinds of listening, like who knew, right? But yeah, there are. There's discriminative listening. This is where you're listening to sort of read between the lines and to understand the meaning and to see if someone's, really telling the truth. You have comprehensive listening, which is here you're listening to understand, learn, remember, recall it. And it's often used in like trainings and classrooms and conflict resolution. Then there's empathic listening. This is where you're listening to understand what someone else is really feeling. And therapists and counselors use this kind of listening all the time. And then we have critical listening, which is where we want to evaluate the worth of the message. We want to hear, to understand, to evaluate it. Okay, is this message, is this piece of information somebody is sharing with me, is it really valuable? Do I need to really pay attention? Do I need to learn more? Do I need to investigate more? So it's that critical listening. Now, we use all 4 of these kinds of listening throughout our day. But the 5th one, appreciative listening, this is when we listen for what is going right? So that problem finding, it's listening to learn. This appreciative listening is the most ignored. In fact, it's the kind of listening that people don't even know about. So here we are. This is the kind of listening that we use when we are listening a story out of someone or listening to someone's experience that they're sharing with us. When you're in appreciative listening, we're going to go through the actual steps of it in a minute. But what's your role as a story listener? Well, the first thing is your attitude is, oh yeah, I'm here to listen the best experience, the best material, the best information out of someone. And the way you do that is you just kick back and listen delightedly. You're not there interrupting, you're not there taking notes, you're just kicking back and listening for the joy of listening. Another attitude that you want to adopt is to be in total service to the teller. And in the one way that you can do that very effectively is to ask reflective questions, which we will go through in a minute. The third piece is to discover a great deal more about an issue. That's what your objective is, because you want to be able to make a better decision. And by the way, story listening automatically creates a deeper connection, deeper relationship. And the focus is always on what is going right, to validate that person's experience. And when you focus on what is going right, you get more of what is going right. You focus on problems, you get more problems. So appreciative listening can be very, very powerful in terms of motivating and empowering anyone that you're listening to. So let's talk about the art of the question for a minute, because remember I said in this previous slide, let me go back. Number 2, be in total service to the other person by asking reflective questions. So let's dig into that question side of it. the art of the question. Now, the first thing I want to share is that, move the slide. Yes, the question is the intervention. It's not your solution. It's not your ability to help somebody solve a problem. Actually, the question that you ask becomes the intervention, because the question can either close down the experience or open up creativity, innovation, new ideas. Now, there are basically two kinds of questions in the world. They're information questions and they're reflective questions. Now, information questions are what we usually ask. When somebody is talking to us about a project, it's like, okay, we're more interested in answering or receiving the answers about the who, what, when, where, why questions. It's all about information. And by the way, when we ask those questions, those information questions, it's really all about me. It's what I want to know. It's not about the teller, not about the person who's sharing something with us. It's, no, this is what I want to know. Let's just cut to the chase. You know, tell me when, tell me where, tell me how. But reflective questions are designed to help you think better about what you're sharing with me. That way we both win. You get more insights, I get more insights, right? And together, right, we understand more clearly what needs to happen. So reflective questions are all about the other person, not about you. Again, right? It's not about your agenda, it's about them. How you can best listen to them for a better result. When you are story listening to someone's experience, always use reflective questions first. Ask information questions later, right? At the very, very end. Save those for later. Ask reflective questions first. So what are those reflective questions? And as you go through this list, just substitute experience for story, right? So that it's more in your business kind of language. So you get to pick and choose any of these questions that feel right to you in any given situation. And so these are not in any particular order, right? It's just a list that you can pick and choose from. Sometimes you might want to ask, well, what draws you to this experience that you're sharing with me? What do you like about what you just shared? What do you love most about this experience? What do you love most about this project? What have you learned? Or what has this experience taught you? What decision have you made based on this experience? Hey, what does this experience really mean to you here at work? What does this project really mean to you here at work? What do you like about how you told me this experience? What do you like about how you shared this experience with me? And is there anything else you want to share with me about this experience, about this project? Those are the kind of reflective questions to ask. And by the way, they are all listed on that handout that I had you download earlier. So let's go through the actual steps of how to create a story listening experience. I call this story laboratory. It's a laboratory you set up for yourself to test a process and to build your skills in a very low-risk environment. Right? So think of it as a laboratory. Oh, I'm going to create a little experience for myself so I can test this, try it out. You're going to kick back and listen delightedly to somebody without an agenda, ask reflective questions, and then give appreciations. Now, I do this at a conference, sometimes at a workshop, in 2 minutes, sometimes 3 minutes each section. People are amazed at, even in just 2 minutes, the depth of connection that is created, the amazing understandings that they have about whatever is being shared, and how wonderful everyone feels when giving appreciations. So those are the 3 basic steps. Here they are again. And I put the 2 minutes on here just to show you that it can happen very fast. But this first time, you should give yourself about 15, 20 minutes to go through the experience. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get together with somebody. And you're going to say, tell me something about X, right? You get to pick what you want to learn about. Now, the first time you do this, pick somebody who you trust, who you feel really good with. Maybe it's a peer, a colleague, a family member, somebody you're in a relationship with, right? So just tell me something about X. Doesn't even matter. What I use in my workshops, really, really easy, is tell me something about your name. Now, we all have names. First name, last name, middle name, maybe a nickname, maybe a married name. Doesn't matter. Pick any of those names. Tell us something about your name. You will be surprised what happens. You get to kick back, listen delightedly, just for the joy of listening. No note-taking allowed, and no interrupting. When that person is done sharing about their name, as an example, then you bring out your reflective question. And you ask 2 to 3 of those, whichever ones seem appropriate at that particular time with that particular person. And then after that is complete, then you just offer appreciations. Oh, this is what I love most about what you just said. Oh, when you got to this part of the story, it really resonated with me. You get to offer appreciations, as many as you can think of. And again, on that instruction sheet, there are even some additional ideas for you if you get stuck, right? So try it out. I even have people tell to me, oh, yes, I tried this out with somebody, and I set it up. I said, let me try something with you. I want to run an experiment, so would you help me with this? And they're just delighted to help. And the results are always incredible. So this is what I want. I want you to go try it out, right? Today, right? You've got the instruction sheet. You know how to set it up. It's going to feel clunky at first, right? Again, at the laboratory, so you can experiment and test. You can build your skills so that eventually you won't need any kind of instruction sheet and you're just intuitively doing it, right? It has become a habit. But the first few times, yes, it's going to be clunky. And yes, set it up with somebody as an experiment. Just try it out, right? When in my workshops and conferences, in my coaching work, when we do this, everybody says, oh my God, this is a game changer. This is life-changing. Being able to story listen in these 3 steps, right, revolutionizes somebody's world. I've had people come up to me after conferences and say, oh, Karen, I never knew this person, but let me introduce you to the long-lost friend I never knew I had. Or Karen, let me introduce you and tell you about my the brother I never knew I had. So give yourself the opportunity to have an amazing experience. And we add story listening skills to your repertoire just so that you can have a greater, more expansive abilities as a leader to be even more effective. It's not replacing anything. There are times when you're going to want those information experiences. There are times when you're going to want to really dig in and listen to a story. And now you know how to do it. You have greater ability. You've just expanded your toolkit. And then, after you have gone through the experience, just reflect a little bit. Ask yourself, well, hey, what was easy about that? What was hard? Sometimes people find not interrupting somebody was hard, right? But really, what surprised you? Yeah, inquiring minds want to know the answers to those questions. So the Story Lab is one of the best methods for others to find their voice, to learn more, to find real meaning. And it's one of the best ways to have a transformative impact. That's the transformative power of story listening, because what happens is right in front of your eyes, you can see and experience a little piece of transformation that happens, because when somebody feels seen, heard, and valued, right? It's like they unfurl in front of you. And people love to be in the presence of great listeners. They will flock to you. If you are a great listener, they will want to be around you. This is why I say story listening is such a high leverage point for influence. When you story listen, you actually have greater influence. And the more you story listen using these 3 steps, the greater influence you have. People always think, oh, influence is about when I share something, when I have a great vision that I share with somebody, or I have a great inspiring story to tell somebody. That's influence. Right? When I want to convey to you that story listening is actually much more powerful than even storytelling. And you need both in your toolkit to be a fabulous, effective leader. Because again, through this experience of story listening, this going through this 3-step process, this is where people feel seen, heard, and valued. And when they feel seen, heard, and valued, they feel empowered, they feel encouraged, and they will take you to amazing places in your work, with your company, as a leader. People always say, oh yeah, empower your employees. Well, how do you do that? You do it through story listening. It's one very, very powerful way. Again, the Story Lab is the best way to listen to other stories, actually listen to others' experiences, to build trust and deeper relationships. Like what I mentioned earlier, when people come up to me after doing this at a conference, it's just hardly able to believe how deep that connection was. It was created in like 15 minutes total between the 2 of them. Story listening breaks down barriers, right? People relax around you, they share more, you learn more. You find common ground. When you story listen, you have inspiring conversations. Again, I think you will be very surprised and delighted about that. You discover the heart of the matter, right, for better decision making, and you are more influential because people love to be in the presence of really great listeners. And this is how you do it. So my one question for you, as we're winding up this piece, is who are you going to story listen with? Who at work? Right? Identify somebody. Who with your family or your friends or your colleagues? Who are you going to story listen with to try it out as an experiment, right? To build these skills. And when? Can you do it today? Can you do it tomorrow? Don't wait. Don't wait. An amazing, incredible experience. It's ready for you. Why wait? Go for it. Again, if you have a question, here's how to reach me. And my last final thought for you is just this. Have a great day. Have a wonderful week testing and experimenting with your story skills. So much will be revealed to you. I can't wait to hear what happens. Send me a note. All right. I think that's it, Artem.
Karen, you're, as always, such an amazing human being, because the listening part is really, let me tell you that the first time I really dove into the 9 techniques of storytelling, which is called the Circle of 9 Muses in English, David Harris's book, I saw you mentioned there with the listening skills, and I instantly thought, this is storytelling. This is what it is all about. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for sharing the story listening part. I actually have several questions to you, and one traditional questions up
Sure.
my sleeve. So you are talking about story listening as a skill set, and
Right.
what I want to ask you is what kinds of skills in terms of different development of a human being, of a leader in an organizations, should we focus on developing that can enhance our listening skill, in your opinion?
Well, I think the first bad habit to break, there are two bad habits. One is interrupting. But the one that I think even more important is to stop asking for those who, what, when, where, why, how questions. Right? When you're receiving a status report from someone, right? Yeah, an individual or a team, right? We default into, okay, tell me what's wrong. See, oh yeah, that's it. It's this whole problem focus as opposed to tell me what's going right. Right? So we become problem seekers and problem finders, and the more we adopt that attitude, the more we find them. So we spend all of our days troubleshooting problems, and then we wonder why it takes so long to get anything done. When we're actually able to acknowledge all the things that are going right, and there's been research that proves this, right? When you're under a deadline, a project is falling apart, and there are huge consequences, like maybe fines that you will incur because you missed the deadline. Research has shown when you focus everybody's attention on what is going right, the problems get solved really fast. Yes. So there's one story about a defense contractor who was going to be fined millions and millions of dollars because they were missing the deadline. And they brought a consultant in. It was a friend of mine. And the fundamental shift they made was, instead of, okay, let's focus on how to solve these problems, they said, okay, let's really focus on all the things that are going right? Because we want more of that. And so they did. And not only did they solve the problems, they solved everything before the deadline. They were like a day early. And they actually then, because they met the deadline, they were rewarded financially for meeting the deadline. And it became a total game changer for that company. And but this is just one little example I can share with you. The research has actually been documented, and it's something that whenever I share this with leaders, they go, oh my God, I never realized how much I was focused on problem solving and the impact of that, as opposed to balancing that out with, yes, you're always going to be, solving problems. But if I can add into my skill set, acknowledging what is going right, it's galvanizing for my teams. It's galvanizing for my organization. It's galvanizing for my company. So why not do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just by telling the story, you really made me believe there that it's easy to even prove it to these kinds of leaders. So folks listening right now, tell this story to your leaders if they don't believe in the power of appreciative inquiring and appreciative listening. Karen, here's one more question. Given that we are in the world where we have this new digital era, and with the COVID, we're in the house is locked down, and there is, like, on the surface, not too much we can appreciate people for, because we can only see when something goes wrong. So maybe there is a clue that you can give our listeners on how to appreciate people in this new era, accounting for this whole digital world we live in.
It's a great question. So I think, Artem, what we need to do first is ask somebody to share an experience with us. And then, whether it's about a project, tell me something about your project, right? Tell me something about your work. Tell me something about a challenge you're having. Right? Tell me something about what's happening, right, with your team. Leave it open-ended like that. Then just kick back and listen while somebody shares that experience with you. And then once you have that experience, then you have something to actually acknowledge. That's specific, right? The last thing you want to do is appreciate somebody that's doesn't mean much. Oh yeah, I so appreciate the good work that you're doing. What good work specifically, right? So ask for an experience first, listen, ask those reflective questions, and then give those appreciations. And that's where the gold is. That is really what's transformational and life-changing for people.
Lovely. I mean, leaders can easily delegate the time and the energy to invest into this task, into this talking and listening to with an open-ended questions. Lovely.
Right. And one other thing is that we test this out in workshops. And because one of the big objections leaders have to doing this kind of listening work is they say, oh, it takes so much time and I don't have any time. So we time it. How much time does it take to get that information the way you want to hear it? Right? And then how much time does it take to listen to the story? And consistently, we time it and we see that listening for the story only takes an additional 1 to 2 minutes. But the impact of the story is so much greater, and people say, oh my God, I learned so much more, and because of that, I am able to make a far better decision. What leader doesn't want to make better decisions?
You're really giving this feeling that it really takes not as much resources and really pays out a lot more than I expected. Thank you so much. Lovely.
You're very welcome.
I hope that our audience will try it out. And I really have the last traditional question for you on this conference. Since we are storifying leadership, I came up with a phrase which I want you to complete, just like in the interview we did. So the phrase looks like this. If story could teach leaders one thing, that one thing would be?
How to open up people's minds and make a bigger difference in the world.
Lovely. Open up minds and have a bigger difference in the world. Make it. Thank you so much. What a wonderful answer. Karen, it was wonderful to have you here. I absolutely enjoy every time you come live and present on stories because it's making a certain feeling of this love towards stories and humans. So thank you so much. It was wonderful.
My pleasure, Artem. Anytime. So glad to be here.